Japan Station is made possible in part by the amazing support of people like you. We just got a new Patreon supporter, Richard. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. Richard joined the $3 a month plus alpha tier. If you want to be as amazing, incredible, astonishing, fantastic, wonderful, sugoi as Richard and support this show so that I can keep producing it and paying the bills, you can join over at japankyo.com/Patreon. You can join for as little as $1 a month, and that will get you early access to episodes, completely ad-free versions, and if you join the $3 a month plus alpha tier, you may get occasional bonus content. I also have a Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Japankyo, where you can do one-time donations, and Venmo and PayPal. Again, links down below. Once again, thank you so much to Richard. Let's get to the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Japan Station.
Welcome to Japan Station, a production of Japankyo.com. This is the podcast where we teach you everything you should know about Japan, plus a few other things. I'm your host, content creator, founder of Japankyo.com, and the anime linguist on YouTube, Tony R. Vega. Happy 2026, and well, let's get right into it. So today I have a conversation for you with someone I've been wanting to talk to for a long time. So she is the co-author of the books Yokai Attack, Ninja Attack. She wrote those books with her husband, Matt Alt, whom you may remember from his appearances on the show because he's been on this show at least a couple times. Matt is always a pleasure to talk to, but I've been wanting to talk to his wife for a while because she's another very interesting person. And actually, she has a new book that has just come out. It's called 8 Million Ways to Happiness. And we talk all about that book and the very interesting journey she went on to write it. So this book is partly a memoir. We follow Hiroko through her entire life, basically, from the time she was a child, dealing with her parents, going off to study abroad, thinking about Japanese religion, what it is, how to explain it to people, growing up, getting married, dealing with her parents' death. She talks about all of this. But while she does this, she talks about the role of spirituality and religion in Japan. She talks about Buddhism, Shinto, Shugendo. And also she goes on some really interesting trips to unique places across Japan to explore certain ceremonies and certain holy sites. It's a really enjoyable and informative book. This is not an academic book at all. This is the story of one woman's life in Japan and, well, other places because she has traveled quite a bit, but mainly her life as somebody in Japan growing up and how she came to, well, become interested in spirituality and try to understand it. And, well, she tries to explain it to people that speak English and don't grow up in Japan. And, well, I personally really find this stuff interesting, but even if you're not all that interested in religion, you just like to learn about people's lives, I think this book will be enjoyable to you. So this book literally just came out, I think, a day or two ago by the time this episode comes out. So if you're interested, check it out. Links are down below. Again, it's called 8 Million Ways to Happiness by Hiroko Yoda. And before we get to the conversation, I just want to remind you, don't forget to subscribe to the show so you don't miss out on future episodes. Currently, I'm releasing 4 episodes a month. So if you're not getting those in your feed, well, go do that. Subscribe so you don't miss out. And I am releasing these podcast episodes to YouTube as well over on at Japankyo News on YouTube. So if you prefer to listen on YouTube, you can go subscribe over there. But primarily this is like Apple Podcasts and all the typical, podcast platforms kind of thing. But it's over there too. So whatever works best for you. Doesn't matter. Go listen, check it out. And of course, Patreon, all that stuff. If you want to support financially, links are down below in the show notes. Always appreciate that as well. But anyway, enough of me. Let's get to my conversation with Hiroko Yoda. my first question for you, and you talk about this kind of at the beginning. You went to study abroad in the U.S. and when you went to study abroad, you have like this I guess kind of training or preparation where they tell you like, oh, this is what you should expect, this is what you should say, and then you were told if somebody asks you what religion you are, you should just say you're Buddhist.
Yes, because I wrote in my book that we don't declare any allegiance to any specific religion because that's the fundamental the difference between the West and Japan, I think.
Right.
You gave me the question to say that what would be the answer today.
Yeah. So today, if I ask you, so Hiroko, what religion are you? What would you say?
Right. So my answer today, it's very simple. I'm Japanese.
Okay? Oh, curveball right there.
Yeah. Here's why. Here's why. So I'd like to give you the big picture.
Yeah.
There's a concept. It's called Yaoyorozu no Kami. Kami means spiritual beings.
Yeah.
So Yaoyorozu no Kami means 8 million spiritual beings. Mm-hmm. And in the time was old, in old times, the Japanese people thought that everything surrounding them had a spirits. The sun, the moon, the ground, the ocean, wind, trees. I mean everything. Even the words they spoke. And the concept it's pretty much active today, but it doesn't mean that Japanese people worship those things. But I would say that's the foundation of our culture, and it's a worldview. And there are three belief systems in Japan. I mean, since you're living in Japan, so probably you notice that there are three major belief systems in Japan: Shinto, Buddhism, and Shugendo. And that I think that's the convenient in Japan. The convenience stores are everywhere, and everybody if you come to Japan, everybody would know immediately that how ubiquitous the convenience stores are. But the number of the temples and the shrines is actually 3 times more the number of convenience stores. And then all the shrines and temples, I'm sorry, I should scratch that, not all. Most of them are open to public. And as long as you act in a respectful manner. So if you ask me, I pretty much frequently go to shrines and temples to rebalance myself, just take a moment, or just check it out, to see, because that I've never seen those temples or shrines, and then I don't see it as a religious act. And then I know I'm not the only one. The vast majority of Japanese feel the same way. Mm-hmm. And Japanese spirituality is such a fabric of our culture. That is why I would say, I'm Japanese.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
And I mean, to me, that answer makes perfect sense. I just wonder what a person who is not aware of Japanese culture would say to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be shocking because a Japanese, and certainly it's not a religion. Mm-hmm. The thing that I have to point out that the word the religion in Japanese called shukyo. Mm-hmm. It's the term shukyo. The word shukyo didn't exist until the late 19th century. Mm-hmm. When Japan had been closed for a long time, and then it finally opened up in 19th century. The American black ship came, and then we call it gun diplomacy. We opened it up, the border, and so when the border got opened, a lot of Western concepts came in. Bank, constitutions, or beef, and religion. So that all the intellectuals in Japan, like, oh my gosh, we have to come up with the term religion. And they came up the term shukyo. So shukyo to us, historically speaking, means that it's basically Judeo-Christian concept. A single God based on faith, worship. And that doesn't fit in Japanese spirituality because I just described to you before. There were 8 million kami. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you that 8 million here doesn't mean the exact number. It simply means many. It's infinite number. So we had, they had, or we have 8 million infinite number of kami, spiritual beings. And then so it just, there's no hierarchy. They're all equal in existence because kami are just everywhere. And it's just, and say we have the kami of plague, kami of poverty, kami of toothaches, and it not necessarily mean that we worshipped or we worship. We don't do that. We don't do that today. But in before either, that the point is that it's a reminder that no matter how you feel or the wish that those bad things disappear or didn't exist, but they do exist. So you have to deal with it, and that's the reminder. So anyway, the adult kind of concept is just so different from religion versus shukyo. So when people ask Japanese today, it's like, oh, are you religious? Basically, you're talking about, do you believe in a single God, or do you believe in a specific religion? And so inevitably, answer would be no. And explain that you have to have all the speech. So so I think the word comes down to is Japanese.
No, again, that makes total sense to me. And, I'm aware of what happened, especially like into the Meiji era, where tons of new words were created to try to describe these Western concepts and ideas that were being flooded, came flooding into the country. And shukyo is one of these things. And, so often we see these surveys of are Japanese people religious, whatever, but oftentimes I haven't looked at every single one and how they do this, but I would assume that many of these are kind of flawed because it's kind of a loaded question, right? You're asking, are Japanese people behaving in the way that a Westerner would consider quote unquote religious? Well, then probably no, right?
The question is basically, it's a wrong question.
Yeah.
And then the answer is the right answer because it just doesn't fit. The another interesting, the difference between West and Japan, I learned through my experience is that, I sensed that the religion in the West, it's a big part of the identity, and ideology, and identity. And even you claim you are an atheist, that's still big, the big claim. Well, in Japan, we don't see that way. And it just, we are so flexible. Japan tends to be very rigid in society, but they're very flexible in spirituality. And then, yes, so that is why, in a survey after survey, it's just basically about 80% of Japanese people say, they are not religious. But we were surrounded so many temples and shrines, and most of them, they were open, and everybody just go in and out freely without any commitment. But still, we're not religious because it's just different.
Yeah. It's interesting that, for example, if you were to take just a random Japanese person, of course it depends on each person, et cetera, but yes. and you see how many times a year are they interacting with something Buddhist, and are they interacting with something quote unquote Shinto, something that could be considered religious from a Western perspective. And then you take a random person in the US, for example, and you say how many times do they go to church? How many times are they doing something quote unquote religious? I think there's a pretty good chance the Japanese person will have a higher number, but they still would say they're not religious.
Right. Also, another thing, the interesting thing is that the borders between the belief system, the borders between belief system in Japan, very blurred, very, very blurred. Between the Shinto, Buddhism, Shugendo, and even Christianity. I mean, there are some Christian churches here, but still, in a certain sense, that it's very, very blurred. Like, for example, there is an idiom, and say that the Japanese are born Shinto, marry Christian, and die Buddhist. And I know it sounds very simple. I know it is an oversimplification. It's very reductive, but still, it tells you something that when the baby is born, their parents and grandparents take their baby to the Shinto shrine. It's not an obligation. Like, my parents didn't do that. For some reason, they didn't do it. But still, I mean, it's a tradition. And then marrying Christian. I did that. My wedding was totally Christian style. Simply just because it's not because I was Christian. I wanted to wear a beautiful dress.
Right. I've heard many people say that. Yeah.
And the church, quote unquote, church was part of the hotel. So it's a wedding hall. And I wrote in my book that the priest, quote unquote, he was American. And I asked him if he was ordained. And he said, no. Just work here.
It's a job. It's a part-time job a lot of times.
It's a job. But it's okay. It's okay. It's not like insulting or anything. It's just like we adapting, and in a very respectful way in our own sense. And then when we die, in it's a tradition. It's a tradition that we hold the Buddhist style the funerals. So yes, I don't know. I just went to go over everything since I what's the
but
question. Sorry.
but it's just a different perspective to approach these things that in the West would be considered religion. It's like when this happens, we do this. When this happens, we do this, and you don't really think too deeply about like, oh, which sect of Buddhism does this? But like, I've had so many friends where I go like, oh, which branch of Buddhism? They go,
yes,
I don't know.
Right. Yeah. There are 156 schools and sects in Buddhism here registered, and don't ask details. The reasons and why I know this number just because I wrote a book. I did the research, so I was kind of different. And unless you are religious scholars, so the details really don't matter. Because it's basically the Japanese the spirituality in a nutshell. It's cultivating positivity in your life, nourishing the sense of belongingness to nature, because the kami belong to nature. The kami are just avatars of nature, and expressing gratitude for what you have. So what I wrote this in a book too. That what I found, from my spirit, my journey after my mother's passing, by re-engaging with Japanese spiritual traditions, I found that many things that in Japanese spirituality are not just only Japanese people, but also anybody, but also to anybody with any background, because once again, like I said before. The kami are avatar of nature. And in nature, it's not Japanese thing. So then the sense of belongingness, expressing gratitude, the cultivating positivity, that's something that all of us can share. And because I'm a Japanese person, I live in Japan, I grew up in Japan, so that's why I wrote a book about Japanese culture in the frame of my memoir. But I found that to us, it's a Japanese spirituality are like a tool. It's spiritual tools, to, to to cultivate those positive things, and then that and that actually we can share to anybody, so long as respectful matter. That is why shrines and temples, many of them are open, and then all the tourists go in, and then and explore. So that's basic. That's a basic main reasons why I wrote this Japanese thing in English and published from America.
Well, I think, like I said, I studied some of this, in school and all that. And, like for me, super interesting, even in an abstract sense. But for many people, this abstract idea of how Japanese people, deal with these, spiritual / religious things, it can be a little bit difficult to understand. But I think your book, because it frames it from your personal story and gives these concrete examples of how you interact with these aspects of religion in Japan throughout these different stages in your life, I think that makes it easier to understand for someone who may not have a background and deep understanding in Japan. So I enjoyed that, and it makes it more vivid in your mind because you're seeing it through your eyes as you experience it.
Yeah, thank you so much, because I just try to make sure that my book is just meant to be for lay people without any backgrounds about my country. And so I just try to make sure. But the thing is, the challenging thing is that all the concepts, all the words are just lost in translation in English. And kami, for example, like I said, it just, there are many, there are many translations in the kami called as God, small small God, and, the GODS, but it just doesn't work that way. And then, and just one single word has requires a huge explanation. And so, it was very challenging. So it really, when you said that to me and, you enjoyed the book, it really meant something to me, because I really, that was my aim and goal. And, I tried to make sure that everybody can understand, and also have a takeaway to and apply to their own life, because life is hard and difficult. And the point, that's the reasons and why, that I call it 8 million ways to happiness, is because there are, if there are an infinite number of spirits or beings out there, there should be infinite number of ways to happiness, to heal your pains and griefs and everything. There has to be a way. And then everybody can find their own way, and then through it. And that was the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book makes it seem like you've always had some kind of interest, regardless of whether you were fully aware of it, in this kind of, spiritual / religious side of things, even when you were, a child. But I'm wondering, like, if there was a specific moment that made you think like, oh, I want to kind of compile this into a book and, share, what I've observed and try to teach people about this side of Japan. Like, was there a specific moment that motivated you to do that?
Yes. Yeah, like you can imagine that, I was being always interested in Japanese history, culture, and traditions. And in 2008, I co-authored the book. It's called Yokai Attack. The yokai means the Japanese folklore monsters. And then after that, we co-authored with my husband, Matt Old. Met. Anyway, and after that we published 2 other books. So it's a trilogy of guidebooks with manga-like drawings. Yokai, the Japanese folkloric monsters, the ninja, and Yurei, the Japanese ghosts. And the reasons why we published those books was because the yokai, ninja, and Yurei, the ghosts, are closely tied to Japanese history and our culture. So, Japanese culture. So it was a matter of course to write about kami, because it was natural choice, at least for me. And then, but the thing is, but I knew it's a big subject. I would say the spirituality is the foundation of Japanese culture. It's a big subject, and so I knew we just couldn't do another the picture, the like the guidebook,
Right.
with the manga like drawings, just because the spirituality, Japanese spirituality, is totally conceptual. And that I mean there are so many drawings out there about kami, but just that's their each person's take, and that's not the point here. So so that is why it took me many years for research, and then I was searching for the right frame, and then I wanted to write in just write book. I mean, write to me, and then so that's yeah. So I guess I would say the moment was the when I co-authored the trilogy of yokai, ninja, and yure.
Interesting. Okay, so I mean, I see it now. I see the natural progression, and then I also see how, oh, this needs to be a much bigger scale book. Like I can see how that would come about.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, okay, the kami attack. They don't,
Yeah, coming attack. Yeah,
okay, it's a yokai attack, ninja attack, and then the yure attack, and it's all survival guide,
Yeah.
survival quote unquote. I
Sure,
mean,
sure. Yeah.
You just don't if you pick up and start reading those books, you don't survive. I mean,
Yeah.
in the end you learn our culture, Japanese culture.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the aim. But even still, kami attack, I mean survival guide, we can't do that. And there's infinite number of kami. So it's like,
Exactly.
what?
Where do you
It's just-
start? Where do you stop? Like,
yeah, and that's
yeah.
not the point. And so yeah, that's just why.
yeah. Oh, makes total sense. Yeah. So you there's a lot that you go over in the book. Of course, you talk about Buddhism and Shinto and all that. But one I think there's one well, specifically Shugendo. I think this is this I guess you would say, kind of religion that is maybe not so well known outside of Japan. People have heard of Buddhism, maybe less people have heard of Shinto, but still a good amount probably. But Shugendo, I think, are not so familiar. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And then I would also love to hear about the experience that you had with Shugendo, especially going out to walk with them. I think the people would love to hear about that.
Sure. As I said before, the Shugendo is one of the three major belief systems in Japan, along with the Shinto and Buddhism. The Shugendo is hybrid. It's a hybrid of Shinto and Buddhism and other belief systems like Taoism, and just things like that. And then the main characteristics of Shugendo is that they venerating mountains. And yeah, but yes, I understand. The Shugendo is very esoteric, than the mystical to most of people, including myself. I had no idea, even though the temples are everywhere, and then Japan is 70% of the Japanese land is mountains, and then the Shugendo is old older belief systems too. So when you climb mountains, you inevitably find old effigies, shrines. Those are the remains of old Shugendo. But I had no idea. but because it's once again it's one of the three major belief system, and it's part of the fabric of our life as a spiritual tools. So I participated the walk with the Shugendo practitioners. I found that the walk that open to the public. Anybody could participate, and then learn a little bit about Shugendo. I didn't write in the book, but it was supposed to be the walk in a mountain. We're supposed to walk in a mountain with the practitioners, but there was a huge typhoon, and then there was a big mudslide a few days prior, and then so the temple had to change the path.
Right.
So that we ended up and we walked like a few miles, mainly in a concrete path. But even though it's a mountain path, and we passed that, the temple that, that sponsored for the walk, but it wasn't like a mountain. Anyway, about 30 people participated in the walk. The variety of people, the young, elderly men, women, and even the Buddhist, the Buddhist parishioners, and then and then non-religious people like myself. It's just a variety of people, and then we walked. We stopped the time to time, and we prayed together. We read sutra. We read sutra every time we found effigies or shrines or temples. Yeah, we even read the sutra along our way at Shinto Shrine. That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
So, yes. So once again, the walk was very short, and I'm a hiker, so it was pretty easy. It's easy path. So if we didn't stop, if we hadn't stopped at every effigies or shrines and temples, the walk would have been just hiking. So, and yeah, I saw that, we saw like a mini tourist, passing by, the residents walking dogs. So if you don't have a spiritual mindset, if you didn't have a spiritual mindset, it would have been just a hiking for leisure.
Right.
So my takeaway from that was that everything is perspective. If you think there's something out there, there's something out there. If you think nothing there, nothing there. It's all to your perspective, and that was my takeaway from that walk. And I think the Shugendo is it's just basically to reminding us that the spiritual realm could be somewhere, but it could be closer than we think by using mountains as a metaphor. And that's how I'm not the religious scholar, and I'm not the parishioner of Shugendo or the practitioner, but I from my experience and research as a Japanese person, that's how we describe. As for now, that's how I describe it. Shugendo. Yeah, and another thing I would like to say is that Shinto, Shugendo, those two have a word, way. It's a way. Buddhism is an ism, so it's religion. But the Shinto and then Shugendo is a way. So it's a lifestyle. And it provides a worldview.
Right. Yeah, the kanji for do, like
yes.
There's aikido and judo and
yes, exactly.
kyudo.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I also found it really interesting how you describe like the practitioners of Shugendo. Like some I think it was one specific guy, but maybe others would also say the same. Like they describe themselves as masochists because
it's a joke, okay? It's a joke.
I know it's a joke. But no, it just goes to show like that kind of aesthetic culture, right? Because like you said, you like that specific thing was supposed to be more of a hike kind of thing, but they will go on these long hikes deep into the mountains and in the cold and sleep out. I guess like where would they sleep? They have these little like cabin kind of things or like what?
Yeah. But so what he wanted to say, and I absolutely agree with what he's saying, is that it's all perspective once again. It's okay. There is a mountain here. I mean, you don't have to go to the mountain first. I mean, maybe you can just sleep in a bed, a comfortable bed. But you go to the mountains, and then okay, it's hard, blah 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 blah. But it's all perspective. You could complain. It's like that's so hard. Why am I doing this? Blah blah blah. Or it's like okay, but just be grateful. It's like, wow, I do that all the time. Like, when I decide to go to the mountains, and then of course I cannot control weather, but every weather I feel grateful because I take and I see, whether sunny, cloudy, misty, rains, cold, hot, each has a beautiful moment, and this, it teaches something. So it's a perspective. Yeah, and so he called it a masochist. He just laughed at all,
Yeah.
but uh, but it's a nutshell, and it's just very important that that in life, it's full of up and downs, and it's difficult, especially in the difficult times, to have a positive mindset. But if you happen to find, or if you find something that you feel grateful about, even tiny thing, that's a huge powerful
Huge.
source to
Yep.
move on. And then I learned. I mean, there are many, of course, the Shinto taught me a lot, and Buddhism taught me a lot, and then the Shigendo taught me a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was basically like, oh, if I sleep on the floor, but
Yes.
at least I'm still inside, right? Like, or
Right.
maybe it's on the floor. The floor is hard, but it's not cold,
Yes.
like you can always kind of, like you're kind of torturing yourself in a way, but you can still find that thing that you can be grateful about by remembering that, like, oh, at least I have a roof over my head. At least there's something, right?
Yes, but the important things that he or they gave the more comfortable space for
Right.
novice. And that's a really the night. I don't want to call it nice, but it's just, I don't know what the word in English, word English right now, but it's just, that's a hard thing to do,
Yeah.
especially in a harsh environment. But that they are happy to let people who are less experienced ones, more comfortable space and place. And then
Yeah.
they say, it's telling themselves, it's like, oh, this is much better, kind of thing. So so it makes me think a lot. It made me
Yeah.
think a lot too. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, no. Yeah, that was a really, I mean, and I think a lot of people like that too, like, maybe they're used to, well, I guess you would say ascetic kind of, they're used to being in uncomfortable situations. I think a lot of times they have a good sense of humor about it too.
Yeah. See, the thing is, that as for the Shigendo, there's no the full-time practitioner.
Yeah.
Just they are there's no full-time. Everybody has their job.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own job, no matter what it is. Some are teacher, some are company salaryman, some are, whatever, and or the housewife. Then so that once again, that is why the way, it's like, maybe the person, that's living right next to you, your neighbor could be practitioner. You never know.
Yeah. Like we can all practice
yeah.
together regardless of what you do and the specific details of what you believe.
Right.
Like,
because it's
everybody
not
can go
identity.
into the mountains. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's perspective. It's very, very perspective. Either you want to make it to the hiking for leisure, or you just see it as a spiritual realm, or hybrid. Hybrid. Like myself, if you ask me, I think it's hybrid. In a sense that, it's like, oh, that I don't see it's just a religious moment or anything like that. No, but more like, it's basically, I always, every time I hike in the mountains, I always find something grateful.
Mm-hmm.
That's spirituality.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
it's so easy to not do that, but you have to kind of cultivate that habit.
Right. And then it makes me think further is that, a human beings are part of the nature, and we have responsibility to protect it. Now we have a big subject, global warming, and pollutions. I mean, and then so it's just so once again, and that is why the Japanese spirituality, it's not a religion, and it's not Japanese. It's much bigger than that.
Absolutely. So there's so much in the book that we could talk about, but and we have limited time, but I do want to touch on one more aspect that I thought was that I always found interesting, and I've talked to Japanese people about this kind of stuff, and you brought up some really concrete examples, but about Buddhism and funerals and death, and how expensive these things can be, and also like how this is evolving. Could you tell us a little bit about that and this link between Buddhism and funerals, and kind of the current situation, how things are changing?
Sure. So the first I have to say crystal clear is it depends on the people. Okay, so it's just a variety of examples, but in general, yes, the Buddhist funeral can be very expensive, and then there are many reasons why, but the one is probably the buying lot for a grave to build a grave. It's expensive, but even though we call it buying, it's not really purchasing a lot. It's still renting. You pay annual fee, so it can be expensive. And then another one is that receiving the Buddhist name after life, the postmortem name, it's called kaimyo, and the Buddhist monks gives you that in turn. For donation, and so because it's donation, because it's donation, it's supposed to be based on how much you can afford, but it can be very expensive. And until my father's generations, having a Buddhist funerals are almost like social norm. That's how you did, and that. So, but the things, my sense that the things got gradually changed, especially since the pandemic, which required, the social distance, and the funerals, I think, becoming more personal and in small in size. And then I think this is the new trends here right now.
Yeah, like you mentioned how Japan is often ranked like among the most expensive in the world, right, for funerals. And it's not just like the land thing, like it's also the name thing, like you point out, right? If you want a fancy, nice, kaimyo, right? And yes, like this post, like, after you die name, like you have to pay more, and some people pay a lot for these things, but most people don't have that kind of disposable income anymore, right?
Yes. Yeah, so it's interesting because when I see the graveyard, and then the graves carved the kaimyo, and some wards are very expensive. So I not necessarily me alone, but just we can tell how much the family members pay, kind of thing. But I think it's changing, and also it just don't get me wrong. It just it depends on the temples, depends on the monks, and then there are many family members doing still same to do the same like before, getting kaimyo, and then having Buddhist funerals, and they bury them in a graveyard, and that kind of thing. So it really depends on the people, and so I hope that I'm not anti-Buddhism or anything like that.
No. I understand.
But it's a difficult issue. It's
a difficult issue, and I think your personal experience with this, with your mother and your father dealing with this and the name and all that. We don't have to get into that. People should read the book. It's a really interesting story that illustrates the complexities of this, and it shows how much money can influence some of this and like, you know, not to spoil this, but your dad ends up actually working at the temple to kind of, you know, like help with the payment in a sense. So like it's a complex thing, but again, your personal story really helps it make it more digestible and memorable, I think, especially for people that don't have a background in this kind of thing. Right. So wrapping up, but I do have two more questions. One, sure. Can you think of anything really unexpected, something that surprised you while you were, you know, working on this and doing the research and going to all these different places and experiencing these things? Anything that particularly stands out to you as something that you were not expecting during this whole process?
Yeah, that's interesting because I just had another interview yesterday. Yeah. And then she asked me the exact same question.
Yeah, so I guess it's a pretty typical question.
Yes. So, okay, surprise. Uh-huh. My surprise was the writing my book. It's a big healing process. That was a surprise for me. Mm-hmm. Okay, what I'm saying is that, you know, the human beings are creature to forget things, and that's a beauty part of as a human being, especially if you have, you know, the difficult times, traumatic experience. You know, just forget. It's easier pain, or even though you cannot forget, but still it can let it kind of fade a little bit, so that you can move on. But when you write a book, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. You have to remember every single detail, so that you can convey everything, so that all the readers can understand, you know, to what's happening in that moment. So that's a very traumatic experience for me, because my book is a journey, mm-hmm. Of my journey after my mother's passing, and in the middle of my writing, my father passed away too, and I have if I hadn't written a book, I would have those, the sadness faded away a little bit. I would take my grief to my grave, my own grave, right. But I could have been faded, I could have let it, ease a little bit. I wasn't allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. So every time I sit on the computer, basically every day, my husband knew, I ended up crying every day. Every day.
Must be writing again. She's crying.
Yeah, it's a trauma. Because
well, you have to relive it to understand.
Yes.
Why did I feel that way? How did I deal with that? What role did religion, right. or spirituality play in all right. of this? And you lay it out very well. Like you take us through that process, but in order to take through that process, you have to relive the process, right?
Yes, you have to. Yeah. So, like, say you mentioned in the funeral, mm-hmm. I was in the funeral over and over, and then that's hard, right? That's hard, but when I hit a certain point, I started noticing myself that I putting myself in my mother's shoe, and then my father's shoe, and especially my mother, and of course I grew up, a lot. I was young. You see, my mother passed away many years ago. She passed in 2008, so many years ago. Mm-hmm. But so I was very young. So that I grew up and I'm more knowledgeable. But after I, while I was writing the book, I started noticing myself and putting my mother's shoe, and then it's like, maybe my mother, thought this way instead of thought that way. I respect, my hurt feeling or regret, it's a fact. It's a fact. That's, when I had it, I'm a teenager. But when I through this the writing process, yeah, I started seeing that different perspective.
Right.
So it was actually the part of that it's actually basically reconciliation, not with mother, because I love mother. So not
Mm-hmm.
mother herself, but no, but a reconciliation with the hardship or difficulties that I
Mm-hmm.
had, or in the at the the situations that I was struggling with my mother, and that's surprise. The whole process. Okay, that when I started writing the proposal, this book, since the writing proposal, beginning the proposal to the publishing the book, it took me 5 years, and then the writing itself is like what 2.5 years. So it took me 2.5 years, of everyday writing. But yeah, it's a started giving started I started putting myself in my mother's point of view. And that's surprising, that was surprise, and that was it. Yeah, that was a surprise.
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
process of
And
writing.
it's really interesting how you mentioned before you started with this idea of like the continuation of the yokai ninja, the attack series, right? And you end up in this place where you're revisiting these traumatic experiences, these sad experiences, but you're seeing them from a different perspective, and you're kind of
Yes,
digesting these experiences, and you're realizing like this is a complex thing. My
yes,
perspective is still valid, but also there was another perspective. And I totally see
yeah.
how you were not expecting that.
Yeah, it's a because I read it. It's like I put all my soul in everything. I mean, in this book, I
I can
put
tell.
everything.
Yeah, I can tell.
So it's just my emotions are
Yeah.
pretty. Oh gosh, it's just undescribable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very interesting the process. I learned a lot from writing alone too.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I co-authored.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't write the book, those trilogy alone.
Yeah.
So,
Very different
but
process.
I
Yeah.
wrote, yeah, and I wrote this book alone in
Mhm.
English, which is not my language.
Yeah.
So just in it, yeah. So so there's so much in it, so much things that I learned. But yes, the healing process, like very intimate. It's a huge surprise. That's something I didn't
Wow.
expect.
No, well, thank you for sharing that. Last question. So,
Yeah.
the book is titled, 8 Million Ways, to happiness. You talk about happiness and how,
Mhm.
all this like spirituality plays into that, and your own journey, kind of dealing with these traumatic experiences and sadness, and in
Mhm.
a way, like looking for happiness as well. But do you have any advice for people that are looking for happiness? Can you share anything with us?
Yeah. Okay. I wish I could, tell this is the way,
This is the
that kind
way.
of thing.
That's it. Okay. I should have put this at the beginning of the show, done in 30 seconds.
I wish I could, but I can't.
Of course.
My
Of
book
course.
is not,
Yeah.
it's not prescriptive.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I kind of touched on it before, but
Hmm.
the reasons and why I called it 8 million ways
Hmm.
to happiness
Hmm.
is just because it means infinite number of ways to happiness.
Right.
Through my journey, I found my own spiritual path to find feeling, I
Hmm.
mean healing, and happiness. So yeah, it's by building my own the spiritual toolbox, so to speak, and from what I learned. So if there are infinite numbers, all coming out there, there should be infinite number of ways, paths, to find their own uh, happiness. I mean, to find their own path. It just yeah. Everybody have a different difficulties. Everybody have a different problems, but there has to be a way, or ways. It doesn't have to be singular. It can be multiple, many. to find their own path.
Yeah,
And that's the
absolutely.
idea.
Yeah. There's no one path which might seem overwhelming at first, but also like you can just try. You just have to start walking down a path, and I
Yes.
think you will like you lay out your path. We don't have to take your path, but
Right.
we can take inspiration from the moments that
Yes.
you lay out in the book.
Yeah, I put a lot of thoughts into this title, especially 8 million, because 8 million means that not just infinite, but also, also that it's just a quiet reminder, all of us, that there's always space for more. So you don't have to replace. You don't have to let things go if you don't want to. It's all, it can be, you can have multiple. And then also this all equal in existence. And so, it's different, but differences are okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that just, I really personally think that's the term, that 8 million concept. You can unfold a lot of stuff, a lot of interpretations.
Absolutely.
And I hope everyone can find their own way.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. So, again, this book is not an academic book. This is a very approachable, readable book that has a personal story at the core. That is the kind of driving force of the book. And you use that to explore all these different, religious aspects of Japan. So again, it's very, very approachable, whether you have a background in any of this or not. So I do recommend checking it out. It is a very enjoyable read. So by the time this episode comes out, you can go get it. I assume it's anywhere where books are sold. You can just look it up. But there will be a link down below, of course, in the show notes. So check it out. Yeah. Thank you so much, Hiroko. It was wonderful talking. It was a great read. And I'm so glad I finally had you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.